The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to Garden Connections. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Well, we're back in the community garden, but first on today's show, we're visiting Larry and Marion Fisher near Waseca, Minnesota. They have transformed an old farm place into a beautiful oasis. I really think you'll enjoy that visit. We'll also be getting another great recipe from Chef Steve Larson of the Quarter Quarter Restaurant. Then we'll be out here in the community garden, and Master Gardener Paul Trichka is going to join us to help diagnose some of the challenges we've been having. I hope you'll stay with us on Garden Connections. Marion, Larry, you have a wonderful place here. Thank you so much for inviting us to come out to see it.
You're welcome.
I'm happy to have you.
Oh, terrific. How long have you guys been living out here?
42 years.
What did the property look like when you first got
Well,
here?
there was no garage. The house was about 1/4 the size of what it is now. It was just an old farm place. We liked the location on top of the hill. I liked it from a standpoint of...
The real story, it was high on the hill, and he's an amateur radio operator, so we had to have the high
hill.
spot.
You had to be up tall.
You had to
and
be
it's
up
great.
high.
You have beautiful
We're close to
views.
And
Waseca.
it's close to town. Yeah.
Right.
So, and it was cheap. We'd only been married 2 years, and it was something we could afford. It was run down. In fact, when we bought it in the summer, we stayed living in town because it was too depressing. There was no way. There was no way. It was really, really bad.
Sounds like you guys have an interesting partnership when it comes to gardening. Does one of you have one job and the other have another, or do you define your territory or you work together?
Yeah, she tend to plant most of the plants, but the fences and all those things tend to be my idea, the hardscapes.
Yeah.
I help with the rocks. The vegetable garden is my thing.
Yeah.
The flowers are more your thing, but pruning the trees, that's my thing.
Yeah, but usually when he gets home at night, he says, well, where do we start, you know? Because he knows that I have had this organized, and he knows.
In your head, and away you go.
Yeah, right.
Well, let us take a look. Would you mind showing us around today?
Okay, where do you want to start?
How about if we start right over here?
Great.
Okay.
Oh, what a beautiful backyard. And all this brickwork for your sidewalk. Oh, you have some beautiful flowers here. What have you got growing? And I see this is a very sunny spot.
That's why we
treasure
planted
the
these.
sunny
We treasure
spots.
the sunny spots around here because we've got a lot of mature trees. We've got delphiniums and the lilies, clematis on the trellis, and then of course in the front we've got a mixture of hostas and peonies and yews. But trying to get some color where we've got a great place to show it off, and it's a little bit more of a microclimate, and then it's protected from the north winds and everything else.
with the
Right. So
garage,
this works a
right.
nice place, kind of the backyard. The backyard has evolved over the years. Our boys, this was the playground when they were small, and it wasn't developed at that point.
So
It was
you had
just
a little,
all
you needed
grass.
sturdy grass, and that
Right,
was
that was
about
what it was. Grass, swing sets, trampoline, sandbox.
And I see you have a couple of really nice water features. That's always fun to have in a backyard.
That's Larry's thing, too. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a good idea.
Well, he's the one who has to maintain all of these things.
And you've done a
I
beautiful job here. This is a great living space in your backyard.
I pick out the water features, and then Larry has to
You
make
get to
sure
install
I
them,
get to
make
install
sure.
and maintain them, right.
figure out how they work. Yeah, I decided I like this one, and so he has to.
It's a recirculating bird bath.
And it is. Yeah.
bird bath,
And, yeah.
Right.
Right. We have 10 bird baths that we have to keep clean and
Maintain.
But I love the birds.
Yeah, it's another beautiful part about being in the garden.
It
Oh,
really
yes.
is. Yeah.
I think the flowers attract a lot of the birds. We plant for hummingbirds, we plant for butterflies.
Yeah,
and,
butterflies,
We've
hummingbirds.
always got our orioles every year, and we've got robins that'll make their
Oh, this
dozens
year
of
we had
nests.
a mourning dove that nested on the house. and a robin that nested in the garage.
We'll leave the door open for the robin. And we got
Very
barn swallows in the
accommodating
back.
Oh yeah, and chipping sparrows everywhere. The chipping sparrows nest everywhere.
They nest in all the evergreens.
Yeah. So,
Very
birds
fun. I
are a
love
big
the
part of
sound
it.
of water in the backyard. It's very soothing. And I see you have a treehouse. Is that left over from the boys' younger days?
Yes, we built the tree house in 1988 because we insisted the boys would not spend their time in the house watching TV.
I understand you have a woodland garden around the corner. Shall we take a look?
sure.
All right. So this is beautiful, blooming.
This is
Not the most fragrant in the world, is it? Or I should say it's fragrant, but
no. This is an actea, and I'm not really sure if the common name is white snakeroot or bugbane, but I know it stinks. To me,
to put it politely.
it's gorgeous.
But it is very pretty.
It's stately.
And it's a Minnesota native woodland plant.
So, all right.
Yeah.
So it's authentic.
Yeah, it is where it belongs.
You mentioned the winds. I see here that your ferns have taken a little bit of beat. Is this from the wind or is this from heat
This
or
is-
lack of water?
Not lack of water. This is mostly the wind, but also a hot wind. We've had a lot
look
of
at that.
yeah, a lot of. And if you look, I don't know if you can see back in there, but there's just the wind comes through here. Of course, now the corn is growing up, but early in the spring, the pagoda dogwood doesn't have any leaves on it yet. And a lot of that doesn't have leaves, and of course the ferns are up, and they just get beaten up. Yeah, and it isn't just the ferns. I have a couple of azaleas that they just get beaten up by the hot wind. Yeah, and even the roses have suffered from the wind this year. But that's what you live with when you live. That's what you live
gardening
with.
in Minnesota.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's true. That's true. Oh, that's too bad. So. It's so peaceful in here, and I love this chime. It really has a mellow tone.
I like the wind chimes. Excuse me.
So you have a ton of boulders. Where did all these rocks come from? You've used them beautifully.
They were 75% of them were in a rock pile in the old grove over the years. The farmers around that farm, these farms had piled them in the grove, and
Free rocks.
Free
and they look
rocks.
great.
well, they were very, very carefully positioned. Our boys put a lot of hours into that.
Well, I'll bet. Strong muscles for those young men.
Oh yeah, they took great pride in that.
That's great. So this is quite a large garden. How much space? How big is it?
It's about 75 foot square. It's a vegetable garden, and then we have some fruits in here too.
Some fruits, and I understand, Marion, these are a favorite of yours.
Oh,
You
the
let him do
bluebell.
the vegetables, and then you do the fruit.
I want nothing to do with the vegetables. I take care of the grapes. I take care of the raspberries. I take care of the strawberries. He takes care of the vegetables.
You've got peas here,
We
and
have snap peas and regular peas.
green beans, and your
beans.
carrots look great. Look at all this
kohlrabi.
basil.
And the basil is for pesto. We'll
Oh, that smells so
Oh,
good.
it has such a great
Love the fragrance.
flavor. Our peppers.
Your peppers are up nicely. Looks like I can see some over there. Do we have any on this plant?
Some of the plants haven't set peppers yet.
Not yet. I see. Oh, there's a
in
big
there.
long one
There's
in
a
the
bunch
middle
of
of that
them
one
in
over
there.
there.
Yep. And then the onions are
Great.
ripening very rapidly.
Looking good.
The squash are growing beautifully. We have the summer squash and the winter squash.
Oh, yep, I can see them in there.
Yeah, they're starting to come. We're going to
Look
have
at
summer
that.
squash real soon. And the spinach is right now seeded, but that's the goldfinches are eating the seed in the spinach, so
So
we've
we
just
just-
left it.
It's a natural bird feeder.
We've also found if we just let it grow to seed where it is,
It reseeds.
that it will reseed and germinate
Fall
as a fall crop.
So you get twice, and you don't have to plant it again.
And in the
Right.
meantime, the goldfinches eat what they can.
Great idea, great idea. And here's
Swiss
some
chard.
beautiful
Chard.
chard. Is this a rainbow variety, or it's, I see
believe it
Bright
several
lights.
different
Bright lights.
Bright lights,
Okay.
yeah.
Several different colors, pretty orange and bright pink. We've got almost
ready
a
to
yellow
harvest.
in there. Oh, that looks fantastic. And these are black raspberries, right?
He prefers red. We have a few red ones on the other side of the barn, but for me, it's the black ones.
It's the black ones. All right. Mind if we sample?
Go ahead.
Those
These
are
nice, large
fantastic.
berries.
Yeah.
They are, and look at how deep purple they are. Oh, this is beautiful. This reminds me of European gardens.
The formalness of it, yes, as opposed to the prairies.
That's
yes.
right. Oh, beautiful. And all kinds of varieties. What do we have here? Let's just start with what's in front of us. There's so much to look at.
Well, they're all labeled. Most of them are hybrid cheese. Some of them are floribundas. We do bury them every year, tie them, dig a trench, lay them all down. Minnesota tip method, yeah.
Okay.
There are about 160 roses in here.
And you have a beautiful water feature, and you have these lovely, tall, kind of almost
pyramidal evergreens.
And that adds a lot of winter interest to the garden, because when the roses are buried in the fall, it's just leaves. There's really nothing to see. So with the arborvitae, we have some form and shape even when there's snow on the ground.
Well, your breadth of knowledge on all these plants and the varieties you have, this is just an amazing place. Marianne, Larry, thank you so much for inviting us out. You have a beautiful place.
It was
Thanks
nice
for sharing
meeting
with
you,
us.
Stephanie. It was really a delight.
Hi, I'm Chef Stephen Larson. Welcome to my kitchen at Quarter Quarter Restaurant in Harmony, Minnesota. Today's topic is fresh herbs. Where do we start? Well, fresh herbs are, by definition, the leafy green parts of the plants and are basically divided into two categories, mild and pungent. Mild herbs, such as basil, parsley, and oregano, can be used in larger quantities and usually added toward the end of a dish to preserve their flavor. More pungent herbs like thyme, sage, and rosemary are best added early in the cooking process so that their flavors can come out. You want to use them a bit more sparingly though, because their flavors can get quite strong. The two recipes we're going to do today find their origins in Greek cuisine. The first dish is pork souvlaki. Now, souvlaki is basically just marinated grilled meat. It can also be done with fish if you use something meatier like a tuna. We're using pork tenderloin today, and I have the tenderloin marinated in a lot of those fresh herbs, oregano, thyme, and sage, but it wouldn't be Greek cuisine without garlic and lemon as well. And there's also a bit of olive oil in there too. So for this, we need to take our marinated meat and throw it on the grill for just a couple of minutes per side. Because the meat has been butterflied out, it doesn't need to cook very long, maybe 2 minutes per side, up to 4. Then we're going to let it rest for a bit because that's very important for the meat to remain juicy. While the pork is cooking, we're going to finish up the dish by making the tzatziki sauce. Now, tzatziki sauce is simply a yogurt sauce with cucumber and some fresh herbs. We're going to be using a goodly shot of mint, that's normal in the dish. We're also going to add some beautiful fresh basil, since we've got it here. Then we'll also add salt and pepper, some honey, and some red onion. So we'll start by making the dressing itself with the yogurt. It's a Greek-style yogurt I'm using, which is a bit thicker than American-style yogurt. Can add our finely chopped onion, a bit of salt and pepper, a good shot of fresh mint. There's a lot of mint in this dish. And then we need some of our beautiful fresh basil. We want to chop this finely so that it incorporates well into the dish. We'll stir that well. Then add 1 large cucumber that's been peeled, seeded, and grated on a box grater. And that finishes that part of the dish. So when the pork is done cooking, we're going to put it on a clean pan to keep the pork moist. To finish the presentation, we're going to put it on a platter with some pita breads, some sliced tomato, and then we'll put the sauce over the top. Want to slice the pork thinly. And then put it on the platter. So there you have it, pork souvlaki with tzatziki sauce. Fresh herbs, because there's nothing better than eating fresh from your garden.
Well, Paul, thanks so much for coming out to the community garden today, and I'm really looking forward to some of your advice.
Well, my pleasure, Stephanie. Thank you very much, and KSMQ for asking me to be here on your show today.
Well, you can see some of our neighbors in the community garden have been doing a great job. Looks like they've really been on top of their weeds.
Yes, these folks here have been very eager to keep it clean, and they know the value of keeping weeds out of the field.
Sounds good. Looks like these folks are a little bit in our situation. Seems like you can hardly be gone for a few days, and the city waters regularly, so while the plants grow, so do the weeds, don't they?
That's right. Yep. They took off the weeds, and you can see how they just pretty much take over the garden, and it's going to be something that these people are going to have to battle for the next few years, because those weed seeds, they're going to be there.
That's right. That is the key, isn't it? Making sure they don't go to seed.
That's right.
Well, let's go take a look at our plant, and maybe you can give us some good advice on what to do.
Okay, let's go take a look at that.
Well, Paul, here is our garden, and as you can see, we've had some successes and some challenges. So let's have you identify some of these weeds for us.
Well, Stephanie, I'd like to say it is one beautiful garden.
Such a diplomat. All right, so in this section, we actually didn't plant anything in here, and we didn't choose to put any mulch down. So this is a great example of the type of weeds that grow in our garden. And what kind of weeds are these typical for southern Minnesota, northern Iowa?
Identification is probably the number one thing as far as knowing how do you best control the plants, that undesirable plants in here.
Right, okay. The ones you don't want to grow.
The ones you don't want to grow that are robbing the soil, your ones you do want from nutrients, light, and moisture.
We have a lot of these. What is this plant? It's kind of feathery looking.
That is a broadleaf plant, and that is what's called a common ragweed. Oh. And I'm just going to pull it off here, and I'm just going to show, just so we can look at it. It's a broadleaf plant. And you can see that the leaflets are very lacy. You can see how lacy the petals are on there, or
similar
the leaflets.
To a carrot top almost.
It almost looks like a carrot. Now the other part of the problem with this particular plant, this is the one the hay fever sufferers will have problems with. So it's probably one you don't want to have around a long time. You want to get it out before it starts to set flower.
Okay, here is another one that has a little yellow flower. I'm just going to pluck this guy out.
Okay, yep.
Also a broadleaf, is that correct?
Yes, this is also broadleaf, and you can distinguish that from the grasses. The grasses, when you look at the grasses, you can see how they have a very, it's a grass plant. You can see the narrow veins, the monocots, where these, they have a broad leaf, hence the term broadleaf.
Sure.
This one is what's called, it's a forage plant. It's called black medic.
Oh.
You'll find this a lot in your lawns. It likes compacted soil.
Okay.
It will produce nitrogen. It will have nodules down here on its roots. You can see the small, the small round nodules there.
Those little bumps,
Yeah, those little bumps there. Those are producing nitrogen for the plant. So again, this is black medic. Again, it's in the alfalfa family.
So maybe you'd want it in your pasture, just not right here.
Just not right here, correct.
Okay, so there are several types of grasses here, and one that I know Jen has mentioned to me she's having such a tough time with is this crabgrass. Well, how can you tell what's a crabgrass, what's not? Is one harder to control than another?
Okay, your question coming back to crabgrass. Right here, what I'm looking at in this area, most of these grasses here, now there's different grasses. As I pull these out, grasses are a very hard plant to get down to distinguish from one grass, from a foxtail to a crabgrass to a quackgrass, but there are unique characteristics that each plant has that you use, and a lot of times probably one of the best things for a lot of people is to have some type of weed ID guide.
Okay.
That you can have that will give you those characteristics of each individual
plant. So you know what you're dealing with. So once we have a situation like this where we've been away for a few days and we've got it growing, you know, in some areas where we mulched a little heavier, it doesn't look quite so bad, but now that we've got them, what do we do? Is our only answer to pull these out by their roots? Do we have any other choices?
Okay, plants like this one here, this is quackgrass, which is a perennial. It's still a grass, but it's a perennial, which means that it's going to live for many years, it's going to keep on going. It still produces seed, as you can see here, but also it has rhizomes in the soil
in the roots. Okay.
that are very unique for identifying that plant. I mean, that's a unique characteristic, and as you dig up the plant,
sure, look at that.
And you pull up the plant, you can see the white rhizomes, and a rhizome is an underground stem. And so right here, you can see in here, this is a stem that's growing underground, and right here there's a node there. Yep. That's where it's going to start and send up a new plant.
So with quackgrass, the reason it's so tough is you may pull out one section, but if you don't get this entire rhizome, he's just going to come right back.
Right, and as you notice right here, as I tore it out, I left part of the plant in the soil. So whatever I left, that's going to send up a new plant. Right.
All right, great. Well, that gives us some idea of what to do with these weeds. We're just going to end up having to pull them by the root as much as possible and just keep on it.
Right. Now, you could look at, Stephanie, you mentioned earlier about using some type of mulches. You know, those are effective. Then you're pretty much left with hand pulling these. And when you hand pull them, you want to make sure you get or rototilling, or you could also look at a hoe. I mean, either one, but it's...
Yep. But you want to get as much of that root as possible.
And when we looked at the garden that was back there, the first one we looked at, and we were commenting how nice it was, you can see that those people there spent a lot of time hand weeding that garden,
and getting
or with the hoe, or with the rototiller, or whatever they used. It's a mechanical form of weed control.
Okay. Let's take a look. I'd love your advice on some of the things that we put in here that haven't prospered as well as we thought they should. They've been in here long enough, and one of the examples are the peppers right here in front of us. You can see there are, what do we've got, 6 of them growing here.
Right here,
and they just look a little sad, and they're so small, yet you can even see in this one over here, there's a fruit on it. We've got a pepper, hooray! but it's very small, as is the plant. What's your diagnosis, Paul?
Well, Stephanie, I mean, like with any plant, you know, you have to look and say, okay, what's going on with it? And I find when you want to identify something is to start looking at a plant, dig out the plant, take a trowel, like one of your garden trowels, and dig a plant out.
Which one's our saddest looking guy? Which one should we dig up and take a peek at?
I'd like this one here.
Okay, go ahead. Let's see what's going on underneath.
We're going to dig this one out here. Now, was there any fertilizer applied out here?
There was not. We had the soil tested, and it came back that the results said that it was a balanced soil, that it had a good pH, that kind of everything was in the comfort zone, as you might say. So let's see what's going on with that pepper.
Okay, so what I'm doing here is I am basically taking the soil and I'm breaking it away from the roots.
Oh, look, and you can almost see exactly that little plug that it came from.
Yep, you're seeing that that's the plug, because you can see the peat moss and the perlite that came with it.
Doesn't even look like his roots have branched out from there at all.
Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to tap it against the spade here to knock off some of the soil. So what you're looking at, what you're seeing is the roots really haven't developed here
at all.
I mean, they're very small. They're also kind of showing some browning on the base of the plant. When you look at the roots in here, you know, a lot of it could go back to how it was raised, how it was transplanted, when it came from the store, some of those things. So I would say why your plants are not thriving comes back to looking at the roots. They're not really developing.
Is there anything we can do for the ones that remain? Because we're going to assume that they are in a similar position. Is this a fertilizer issue? Is there a way we can stimulate those roots once we've got the situation?
Probably your biggest thing, Stephanie, is make sure they don't ever run out of water.
Okay.
You know, if you did the soil test and they said that it was well balanced and you had good fertility there, I wouldn't add any more, because if you add more, you can cause some burning of the plants.
Okay.
One other thing, Stephanie, I just want to bring to your attention here is when we look at the soil that's right here underneath our plant, there's a lot of organic matter, a lot of straw, a lot of roots from last year, a lot of plant debris.
Right.
Sometimes that can not always the best thing to have if it's too much.
Oh, okay. So some, but not too much.
Some, but not too much. I mean, you want it well mixed with the soil, but not near the surface. And when you look at this, there's a lot of residue. And as this starts to decompose in the soil, it's releasing a lot of organic acids that can interfere with growth development.
Suppress growth of new ones. All right. Good tips. Well, Paul's going to be joining us again next week to continue looking at this garden and give us some more advice about our cauliflower, our broccoli, and why our celery is turning a little yellow in some places. I hope you'll join us. Thanks for joining us today on Garden Connections. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. On Garden Connections, we'd love to see photos of your garden. Or if you have questions for our garden experts, contact us by emailing garden@ksmq.org or like us on Facebook.